and they're doing the exact same thing with Iran right now. But we're not going to fall for it, folks. We're not going to listen to the BS mainstream media. We're going to listen to people like Dan. So, Dan, let's keep going with this then. We're going to get to Iran, Russia, Israel. But let's finish, keep going with Ukraine for a bit. So with Ukraine then, who benefits from the continued war in Ukraine and escalation with Russia? Who benefits the most? Who's the prime drivers behind it at this point?
Well, I think that it's really important to realize, and I mean, everyone can rewrite their own narrative and say we're at a crossroads, or we are now redoing, we're rethinking, but it is true that it has hit a wall. Nobody is benefiting. It was for the benefit of the military-industrial complex, obviously, the anti-Russian kind of bulwark of NATO's existence, right? They're going to keep the Americans in, the Russians out, and the Germans down. That was the big deal, right? That was and that has gone on forever. The Atlanticist cabal has kind of made that whole history happen. And what the reason it is at a stopping point in terms of, I shouldn't say stopping point, because the ceasefire is not a ceasefire. Here's a ceasefire. Cease firing. Oh, there's it. I just did a language thing. Like, stop shooting. Everything they're using is American or European imported goods, except for they have a lot of, they can make their own drones, but the Russians are taking care of that right now. Excuse me. This was as a following the whole history of using Ukraine as a battering ram to get at Russia. And you have nobody even questions this anymore. You have Callus, what's her name? Kaja, Callus, Estonia, Lithuania, one of the Enias, I don't know what it is. One of the little ethno-states up there who her grandfather was a Nazi, and she is still talking in this language of how to break up the Russian state, how to have several, like Serbia, Montenegro, North Macedonia. I always get that wrong on my Sporkle tests. Kosovo, the biggest NATO base in history. Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, what we knew as Yugoslavia. But now Russia, we could do the same thing. They love little countries. This is, again, like the Berlin Conference. This is like 1884, 88, all of this has been brewing for a very long time, and these are only newish details that are being added, like I was just saying about changing the costumes, joke again about changing the font, changing all of the ideas. I'm sorry, not the ideas, just the patina, if you will. And so that was what this was for. Russia said from the beginning, look, we're sick of this eastward NATO march, having, missiles and potential nuclear missiles all over Eastern Europe, allegedly aimed at Iraq, and Iran or whoever, but that's a few thousand miles that way, and we're right here. So obviously we're really, and welcoming new NATO, like Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Hungary, all over up to Russia's border. And they said the same thing, and they still say the same thing. No NATO, no nukes, no huge national army, no non-neutrality, all the ends, no. And that has not changed ever. So when this idea of a ceasefire, which is ridiculous anyway, to hear the main antagonist say that he's brokering a ceasefire. I stole your car. Oh, that's too bad. Now I want to, broker between you and your neighbor. What? Because what? I don't get that. I never got it. But that's a separate show about American diplomatic politics. What a circus. That's crazy. But so you're going in this way with Ukraine, and the idea is still the same. You have the Western push and the Russian resistance, period. And I know that there are people, because with Yeltsin, with Gorbachev, with the 90s, this horrible, I mean, talking about millions of deaths. It was a horrible time for Russia. And the oligarchs who took it over and owned it sold it. Just sold it out to the West for the ruble, whatever. You give dollars. We like dollars, yes? Because it's Western, it's green. Our money is red, like communists. And that was so devastating that rebuilding it has been an enormous challenge and accomplishment for the people, the state, for history. And to come back into it with Ukraine and say, we're still gonna do this. It's like, no, we went through this. We went through this in the 90s. You accused us of interfering in your elections? And you have a picture, a cartoon of Yeltsin drunk off his ass on the cover of Newsweek or Time, I forget which, and it said, "Yanks to the rescue," right? This is from 1990 or 88, I forget. But I mean, they handpicked this. They tried. This was their agenda, and they did it. I was going to say, well, but I don't really want to give them any credit, because it's like how to clean up a mess. It's a mess. You had the destruction, the absolute bottoming out of male longevity. Like, what is expected life expectancy? Dropped by like 20 years. Like, it was unbelievable. And the response has just been to keep it that way. We can still do that with them. And that's why I think that Ukraine is a petri dish of this idea of supremacy. I mean, it's true that Bandera was a Nazi, and that the CIA has kept back because of Operation Gladio, because of the idea of keeping a thorn in the side of the Soviet Union, has literally fed Nazis. There have been articles about these Nazi children's camps. They're funding ads, banning the Russian language, having all this. An ad saying, is your sister listening to Russian music? Turn her in. That is shocking and sickening. But it is part, I want to make the distinction, it's part of the broader picture, which mimics, Hitler's philosophy in a very real way, like Edward the Eighth. This is we're better, we're smarter, we're Churchill. We're a better race. The Slavs are subhumans, just as Aryanism said. But it is what the Americans have thought for, and I'm sorry, our big brothers over there, you people on the other side of the Great Pond, it's an Anglo-American belief. Phrenology came from Europe. I mean, this is how it started. And that has continued in terms of thinking Russians aren't real people. Seriously, it is an overtly, deeply racist thing. I say that I'm Irish, right? We're the palest, blotchiest people on earth, but we still have been labeled the N-words of Europe, right? Because race is not always about melatonin and melanin. Melatonin is illegal. Melanin is not. Got to keep those. Okay. Got to keep those straight. But you see that the response to that is also stoic and permanent. That's the thing that the West doesn't get. You can have, you remember what's, Stanley Kubrick, we love the bomb, Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Strangelove and, Buck Turgidson saying, your average Ruski's got guts. Ain't nobody arguing that. Your average Ruski's got guts. And this was obviously a setup, but that is the idea. Look at them. They just throw themselves. And this is the World War II narrative. They wanted to kill themselves. It's like Churchill saying that those Bengalis, 147 million died in the famine because they just breed like rabbits. It's an age-old thing. It's ongoing, and it's important. It's important to teach and understand that these are the basics that people. This is the mist or the rain that fuels the grass on which we live. And every time you say, "Oh yeah, I thought he was the guy who," wait a minute, was it? Because in all probability, it probably wasn't. Or you have been learning and you need to unlearn. That's why it's so refreshing. Like you talk about talking to your parents. I'm sorry, Phoebe. Apologize to your parents for me because I keep coming back to them and I shouldn't, because what I mean by family is people who are middle-class, educated, white people who have donned this cloak of respectability and learnability and learned being part of us, right? It's us. And sometimes, not sometimes, I shouldn't say that, all the time. Let me correct that. All the time, it is easier to talk to people who are outside of that circle. Guys you meet in a pub, and they say something about Ukraine, and you say, well, wait a minute. Did you know that was complete bullshit? What do you mean? Well, this guy, you remember Ireland, right? Yeah, my grandmother, yeah, well, here we go. Because unlearning is enormous. Unlearning is a huge task. This is why I follow my mother's prescription of starting young. All my college friends, we thought we were going to go out and teach high schoolers, AP history high schoolers who were 2 years younger than us. And we were going to teach them. And my mother was like, no, honey, go younger. You have to, because they are getting it. They're getting it all the time. Look at a toy store. You go down the pink aisle, or the aisle where Pink threw up. That's the girl aisle. Then you come up the toy aisle, which is all guns with little triggers that you can actually push and make the noise. And that's how kids are being raised in this environment, and that's one of the. I mean, I'm going afield, but that's why it's possible to make people believe this stuff over and over again.
Right, folks, come on, let's get the subscriptions up on Dan's channel. He's at 60 subscribers right now. Let's get this up to 100. And if you've got questions, put them in the chat. And Ron is going to join us at some point, hopefully, and he's going to facilitate live call-ins for Dan, which is a feature we've just incorporated last week. So let's see how that goes. All right, so we've got a question that's coming from Nikki. Is Trump going to succeed at getting peace between Russia and Ukraine, and at what cost?
You know, seeing the at what cost, I thought it was a joke, because if you listen to anything anyone says about China in the past, like 10 years, right? China has, raised 800 million people out of poverty, but at what cost? And the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post and the New York Times, all the papers of record or the papers of race or whatever you want to call them, all the news that's fit will print, always say this, does this, they did this, but at what cost? And but at what cost is kind of the NESPA, the anaphor of language to deny the agency of the original question, which is they did a wonderful thing, but it must be bad. Now, going back to this particular, to Nikki, I don't know. There's obviously something behind that. Is he saying that Trump is doing it only for the PR value? Right? If you say at what cost, it is almost certainly from the perspective of a Western European non-peacenik. But at what cost? He'll make it easier for Russia to invade Poland. And I don't know what to say to stuff like that, because that's not at what cost. The cost is zero. Let me go. There's what cost. If he actually did it, if Trump is going to succeed at getting peace between Russia and Ukraine, there will be no cost for the humans. But I don't think he believes in it. He's not brokering. Like I said, there is no brokerage when you are the aggressor. Now, okay, we can go back to our family gatherings and all the things and say Russia did, Russia, but going further back to whatever color revolution you choose, to whatever coup you choose, to whatever installation of national leadership you choose, U.S. and therefore Trump. That's the Constitution. I'm sorry, you can't just say, oh, I took on this job, but I don't care about anything that happened before me. This is, first of all, he was president from 16 to 20. And this U.S. is the aggressor, is the main aggressor in this, in Iran, in Venezuela, in Syria, in Libya, in Palestine. Again, that it's hard to keep talking about that same thing. So if he is going to succeed at getting peace, well, that means the cost would be to dismantle the U.S. imperial ambition. That would be terrible. He would cut the nuts off of the military-industrial complex's control over Congress. What kind of cost would that be? I mean, I don't know what you want. The thing is, at what cost is so huge, and it's so revealing to the questioner, because it means that I don't believe in what the question is. Well, yeah, there you go. The actor trend is this guy, Texas guy here. Right. Trump, Macron, notice the actor trend. What the actor trend started with Reagan. Well, no, I wouldn't say it started with Reagan, but that is the main political starting point for American politics. And in fact, you know what, Sean? That's it. That was the last president. That's it. We haven't had an election in 40 years. We have just reinstituted that idiot in a different suit with a different tan and a different wife, I guess. And that is it. You talk about dynasties. Nobody, because Kim Jong-un is the son of Kim Il-sung, and this dynasties, what people talk about in non-Western terms. Those people are crazy. They have families that run forever. In Western terms, we establish institutions that run things, select copies of the exact same thing, clones of Reagan, and keep electing them, funding. I mean, can you believe this election, the last one in the US, that you have billions of dollars being spent, and this is the best you can do? 300 million people? That's all you got. That, if you're not saying that isn't staged, then I don't know what. I don't know. Do you stand around watching the guy in the park doing the 3-card Monte and say, wow, he's good? How do you not see that? We have a dynasty. It's the dynasty of the ruling class's enshrinement of that thing. And Macron, they came out with a new thing. They didn't like the, oh shit, people don't like PS. People don't like RFR, whatever it was, Rassemblée for la République. So Chirac is gone, and the other guy is gone, Mitterrand. Now we need a kind of coiffed, suited, actor. And that's all they're doing is acting. I don't know.
So is the magic trick that is being played by these actors then? Is it that they're purporting to bring peace to Ukraine or handing it over to the Europeans, and they're just transferring all that military apparatus over to war with Iran, so that we've got Orwellian perpetual war feeding the military industrial complex? Right.
What is it? We have always been at war with East Asia. Right? We've always been at war with these. Big Brother has always been at war with East Asia. And I think that's the cycle. And the Europeans, I don't know what is up with the Europeans, because it wasn't technically their war to start with. Although, obviously, they have a really big hatred for the Russians, which Americans do not in the same sense. There's a weird kind of Napoleonic, Hitlerian, NATO-esque. There is something kind of anti-Slav that we just don't quite get. And the Americans are the Ku Klux Klan. They're the racists of racism. So I don't understand why the Europeans want to hold on to that. This is clearly this is item 7B on the agenda. Okay, we've wasted a lot of money. It didn't work, that's not really a fair thing, Sean, because it did work. It did work. It should have been over in May of 2022. So it's going on 3 years of stretching. And think of the money that they raked in, what Russia spent, the dead kids in Ukraine, the dead kids in Russia, all of this, they win. That was what they wanted, and they got it. They didn't want to win the war. They never gave a crap about winning the war. They want to prolong the war. But when you have a losing hand and you still own the house, You want to reshuffle and redeal. They want to take back the money and move on to Iran, to China. And they actually are doing it. Look at Pete Hegseth was circulating this memo 2-3 weeks ago that got unsecreted, whatever, about framing a real war against China, a hot war, fighting China and making it work with, balancing how we need to balance with Russia, how we need to balance. And it's like a sickness that is as deep. It's unbelievably deep that you realize, like, wow, these guys are off the wall, man. They really think. And what? Talk about not changing the font. They lost. Did they not? They didn't get that memo? Why is that going to be different in China, in Iran? The main thing, you have this tiny little island, you people, and across the pond, this enormous floating turtle, sending armies all over the world, expeditionary forces. That is not conventional war in the sense that it never has been. You're not defending territory or encroaching on territory. It has reshaped the whole idea of how military development works. It's not, unless the U.S. is going to invade or defend from Canada or Mexico, they never really get it. Then, and Andre, you talk to Andre, who talks about this all the time. These people, they're not defending their homes and their children, and thinking that they can understand the mindset of what they perceive to be the enemy is retarded. It's crazy. How could you know what they're thinking? And that goes, again, it's partly about critical thinking, partly just about interpersonal intelligence. Like, how do you, I don't know. Now I sound like a toddler. Like, just don't take, we share. We don't take from friends.
Which countries do you think Ukraine, Russia, NATO, or Iran, Israel, America, Russia? Which trajectory do you see more likely to escalate to World War III?
Well, obviously, it has to be Russia or China because of the intended or assumed nuclear consequences. Because they're the ones who have. That's why you don't have, like, well, when we did you did this with so and so, and you have these tiny little countries doing or saying X, and then you say, yeah, well, okay, but that's different. Superpowers are not in the same league, and you have to deal with it more gingerly and more openly and on a different plane. And so when you're talking about the provocations that could look, because it's not one of those